Welcome to Stories After Midnight. Today we'll be reading a story called Trading My Child. It's from a collection of stories called 54 Sleepless Nights, written by Tobias Wade. I really appreciate you stopping by and checking this story out, and a huge shout out to my patrons for really helping make this episode possible. Let's get started. It's not my child just because it grew inside me. Maybe all the shared joys and despairs of motherhood could have taught me to love it with time, but nature made it clear the effort would be wasted. I knew even before it was born that the boy wouldn't be normal. His nervous system wouldn't develop right, and he would likely suffer from seizures the moment he was born. His heart would be feeble, his brain wouldn't get enough oxygen, and it would be a miracle if he lived to see his first birthday. My friend Wallace and his wife were pregnant at the exact same time as me. Before I got the diagnosis, I'd spent days with Wallace drafting plans for our children's futures. We'd been friends since elementary school, and it was so much fun to relive our childhood memories while we dreamed about the perfect lives for our children. They were going to be best friends with playdates, sleepovers, and matching outfits that would make everyone think they were twins. We even had schools picked out for them all the way through high school so they'd never have to be apart. It wasn't fair that Wallace's boy would get to live the life we planned, while my boy withered and rotted before my eyes. Not to mention that he married rich, and he could spend all his time with his little boy while I was slowly submerged with medical bills I still didn't know how to pay. It took almost a week before I could even bring myself to tell Wallace the news. All that time I'd kept smiling and making plans, lying to him and myself that everything was going to be okay. Then came the night when Wallace brought over his book full of ideas to decorate their rooms, and all I could think about was how empty and evil that place would become to me. I started crying right there on her sofa, unable to stop the cold truth from pouring out of my mouth. Wallace cried with me, and we were hugging and holding each other when he whispered in my ear, "Would you prefer to have a different, healthy baby instead?" "I'd settle for a healthy dog at this point," I said, trying to laugh my way through the tears. It was no use, but neither was feeling sorry for myself. "I'm talking about Lucas," Wallace said. I knew he was serious then, because he pushed me back to arm's length to look me in the eye. "Although, if you're the one raising him, I don't suppose there's anything wrong with you choosing a different name." That's when Wallace shared the secret he'd been holding too. His wife had been cheating on him, and he was leaving as soon as he got his financials in order. I tried to hug and console him the way he did with me, but he pushed me back again to speak calmly and clearly. "No, don't. It's okay. Don't you see how this is a blessing in disguise? I don't want to raise a child in a broken marriage, and you don't want to raise one you'll lose so soon. But if we were to trade..." It didn't take much to convince me. The burden of my boy's illness had been grinding me down to nothing, and I was so relieved that I didn't allow myself to question the decision. I had one more chance to change my mind before the children were born, though, when Wallace confided why he wanted my sick boy in the first place. "It'll be our little secret, right?" he asked. It was strange watching him pace nervously, checking and rechecking the windows to make sure we wouldn't be interrupted. "Always," I promised, not mentioning my own shame at the covert deed. "Not a word, not to anyone," Wallace insisted. "Especially not my wife. After we've made the switch, then I'll confront her about the cheating." "You still haven't told her that you know?" "She'll only deny it, but it won't matter when we have your child. I'll take a DNA test that shows I'm not related to your boy, and she'll know that she's been caught without any reason to test her own DNA. Then I'll have cold hard evidence, and I'll take her for every penny I can get. You have no idea how much easier this is going to make the divorce." "What about my boy?" I asked, incredulous. But Wallace only shrugged. "It won't be your boy anymore? Why do you care?" Then he turned to see the expression on my face, and his stance softened. "He's going to get the best treatment money can buy, and his short life will be comfortable and happy. You're going to have a happy life with a healthy boy, and my wife? Well, everyone is going to get what they deserve. You're not having second thoughts, are you?" "No, only first thoughts that never quite go away." Wallace moved closer to me, close enough to smell the sticky sweetness of his sweat, and whispered, "But we'll both know you'll be raising my child, and who knows? If your husband isn't providing the kind of life you deserve, I'll always be there to help raise my boy. Maybe we could even..." I felt the child inside me squirm, and I recoiled from Wallace. "If you still want a child, then you shouldn't trade yours away. My husband and I won't need any help. Thank you anyway." I'm sorry, I didn't mean to suggest." Wallace kept trying to get closer to me as he spoke, but I quickly intervened. "I just need time," I told him. "I don't want to see you until the children are born. Do you understand? It would only make your wife suspicious." Wallace let me go without resisting, and I was fool enough to really believe things were going to work out from there. Our 2 boys were born only 2 days apart. It was almost a week before Wallace and I could meet in secret. I could barely force myself to look at my boy the whole time, because I was so afraid that I would really start to love him and couldn't go through with it. But what was a week of agony weighed against a full and happy life ahead? I waited in the empty parking lot as Wallace's Lexus slid into the space next to me. I gently swayed the precious bundle in my arms while he got out of the car empty-handed. I thrust my boy into his arms without a word, and he stowed the child safely in a car seat in the back. "You sure your wife won't notice?" "She's on vacation in Miami," Wallace laughed as he circled the car to retrieve the other boy from the back. "The cross nurse actually taking care of him might notice, but she'll be paid more not to. Speaking of, you know you only have to ask if you need money for our child." "Angelo is not our child," I insisted sternly. Wallace pulled a quick, tight smile which vanished immediately upon handing the healthy boy to me. "Right, you are. Not a word. Your boy is Angelo and my boy is Lucas, and that's the way it's always been," Wallace said. "No, you don't understand." I snatched the boy from him to cradle him protectively against my chest. "Angelo is my child. My real child." "Hey, it's not lying if you believe it," Wallace winked as I climbed into my car. "When will I see you again?" But he really didn't understand, because the funny thing was that in that moment I really did believe Angelo was my real child. Wallace was the only person in the world who made that lie real, and I realized I could never look at him without digging up something in my mind I wanted to stay buried forever. I didn't say another word to him, and just got in the car and drove away, never intending to acknowledge his existence again. I lied to myself so ferociously that I completely forgot any of these events occurred at all. The effect was so pronounced that the next time I saw Wallace 2 years later, I didn't even recognize the man until he startled me with his embrace. "Thought you got rid of me for good, didn't you?" he whispered in my ear. "Where is my son?" I asked for the first time, referring to my sick child that I'd completely forgotten bringing into this world. "Lingering." The word was hard and disappointed. "We worked it out though, you know. My wife and I, we're still together. It's amazing how a shared burden like that can pull people together." "I'm so happy for you," I said, although I felt nothing. I just wanted him to leave so I could go back lying to myself. I caught Wallace staring at Angelo through the car window, and I hurried to retrieve him to take him inside my house. "Lucas isn't dying," Wallace said accusingly. "You said he was going to die. That's like breaking the deal." This was not a conversation I wanted or was even capable of having. "I don't know what you're talking about," I replied stiffly. My shaking fingers fumbled with Angelo's car seat in my haste, then a rough hand on my shoulder yanking me away from the open car door. "Let me look at my healthy boy," Wallace begged. I shoved him right back, but not before his hand lashed out at the child. Angelo began to scream, and I snatched him from the car and rushed for my front door. "We want to trade back," he shouted after me. "We'll say you took him from us." I slowed to a stop, my key in the lock, unable to turn and reveal the truth I've buried so long. Angelo was still wailing, and that's when I noticed the small clump of his hair that Wallace had ripped out. "The DNA test will match my wife and I, not you," Wallace gloated. "You can have your boy back if you want. What's left of him anyway? We just want our boy." "Your boy is waiting for you at your home," I said through gritted teeth. "Then find us another 2-year-old. My wife won't know the difference. You've got 1 week before we call the police." Angelo is my son, and I'm not giving him up for the world. But if I could bury something like that for years without remembering, then maybe there's space for a few more bodies to protect my boy. Thank you for listening. That was the end of that story. I really appreciate you coming by. Huge shout out to my patrons for helping make this episode possible. If you enjoyed it, I'd love it if you'd like the video, maybe leave a comment, let me know your thoughts on it. And if you do end up purchasing yourself a copy of 54 Sleepless Nights, do let me know. And you can find a link to the book in the description of this video or episode, wherever it ends up. I really hope you enjoyed yourself. If you'd like to, you can come hang out with us in Discord. It's pretty chill and low-key. And if you fancy yourself a writer or whatever, you can actually go to storiesaftermidnight.com and submit your story to me to read on this channel. So, thank you for being here. Like I say in every video, we'll see you in the next one.